captured. Please choose to disable your video. You'll know that it's disabled because you'll see a red slash through the camera icon. We encourage you to take notes in the collaborative note-taking Google Doc set up for each session. I'm going to paste that into the chat right now. So if you click on this link, you'll go to the collaborative note-taking doc that you can contribute to. And now I'm going to introduce Comfort. Comfort Ate started her career as an agronomist before switching to science education. She received a BS from the University of Cameroon, Yaoundé, and a diploma from the Higher Institution of Agriculture in Cameroon. She later moved to the United States, where she obtained an MS and PhD in agronomy at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Comfort obtained a second PhD in science education at the University of California, Davis. She worked as a postdoc fellow in the University of California, Davis, taught at the Sacramento School District, California State University, Sacramento, and at the University of California, Davis. She has been in Providence College since August 2010 and is currently an associate professor in the secondary education program. Her professional philosophy is captured within a systems thinking lens that embodies social justice for the common good. She's interested in assessment system and engages in research that explores the subsystems and their interactions towards sustainable solutions for an effective system. Over to you, Comfort.
Thank you, Jen, and thank you everyone for joining me. Wherever you are in the world, it might be good evening, good afternoon, but I'm also excited that you are all here to share in this presentation. My very first on visual presentation, but given the last almost 6 weeks after abrupt migration of my courses onto visual and into Zooming, I feel comfortable, but then I still have my fingers crossed. But the Jen behind me and all the other technicians, I am sure we are not going to experience additional glitches. So thank you again for joining me here and to listen to me while I share with you the good, bad, and ugly of student formal evaluation of faculty. I had the opportunity to listen to the other sessions, and I was so intrigued by the presenters. And each time they mentioned faculty and how faculty perceives assessment, I kind of like flinched here and I said, oh yeah, that's true. Oh no, that's not. And it looks to me, at least from the list of people who registered, the list of names and your portfolio kind of indicated to me that overwhelming majority of you are in administration roles, in assessment roles, and probably very few who are faculty. I wish I had a poll here to see how many faculty members are here. But again, I'm sure that whatever I'm going to present here, you as assessment officers in your different institutions, organizations, you'll be able to relay my experience to the faculty members. And for the faculty members who are here, I hope you are also going to be able to gain something. This is the outline that I'm going to use to guide us here, a little bit of the introduction literature. And then this presentation is actually based on a self-study. I'm going to share that with you. And then the conclusion and then implications for faculty and different institutions. So, as Jen said to you, I have been here in Providence, Rhode Island at a small liberal college, Providence College, since August of 2010. And with my background in teacher education, one would expect that I would have all the knowledge and skills to be engaging, to be able to engage future teachers in excellent methods of teaching. However, I quickly realized that was not the case based on students' evaluation of my teaching, my very first 2 semesters here as a teacher educator. I quickly realized that students were not forthcoming to me on challenges that they were experiencing as I taught the class. They did all the work. When I asked if everything was okay, they said yes, everything was okay. And to me, I was excited. I thought I was really doing good. not until I got my formal feedback of their evaluation and I saw some kind of disconnect between what I was observing and hearing from the students and what they have written on the formal evaluation. How can you fix something that you don't know, right? I was there as a teacher, I was teaching, I thought everything was going on. And then the students, they knew that something was not going on. And now I see that something was definitely not going on. But what was that thing that was not going on? From the evaluation that I got, I could not easily perceive what was it that was not going on. And so I decided to begin this journey of self-assessment of my own teaching, to be very intentional, to figure out what was wrong. And based on what I have been observing and doing for the past almost 9 years, I am sharing today with you the good, the bad, and ugly of students' formal evaluation of faculty teaching. Yesterday, I just said, let me Google column on student formal evaluation of faculty teaching, and it hit 1,570,000 articles related to student formal evaluation. Then I said, let me just go. Let me limit it from 2019 to 2020. And I still got a significant number, 14,000. That is quite a lot. And so that tells me and you that anything that is related to students' formal evaluation of faculty is important. It's something that we need to be attentive about. And here I share with you some of the literature for those of you who want to kind of like go as far back as 1920. There's some interesting literature talking about students' formal evaluation of faculty. So it's not something that started today. It's something that has been here a long time ago. I was also interested by some of the statements made in some of the literature. For example, if you look at the first one, it says, students are stakeholders in their learning. This was Cohen in 1974. He submits that the fact that students are stakeholders in their learning, we definitely are supposed to listen to them, collect their comments, collect their information, collect any report that they have to share with respect to evaluating faculty. Another research also talks about faculty reporting some reduction in moral and satisfaction, all associated with students' formal rating of their teaching. And then we also have literature that talks about faculty that questions the value of student rating. Some faculty saying students are not qualified. They don't even know what good teaching is. How can they evaluate us? And many other issues related to students' rating of faculty. It's a lot in the literature. One thing that caught my interest was this quote by Cohen, that the ultimate goal of evaluation is instructor self-evaluation. And that is where I come in. And in the last session, I had someone was talking about faculty, how they can get faculty in training and to get them excited about evaluation. And to me, this is what it has to come down to. If we don't make evaluation something that would motivate faculty to be involved in this evaluation or assessment, and then as Cohen said, all the work that assessment people are doing with collecting information from students will not really gain anything productive in enhancing teaching. So the impetus for what I call here is self-study, studying students' evaluation of my teaching and how I have enhanced or changed my teaching or not. It was based on the low scores that I received from students formal evaluating my teaching. And I was said, coming in with this background from graduate school in teacher education. Here we are talking about teacher education, where I am responsible for preparing, teaching future teachers of high school, right? How can I stand and just accept students telling me that my practices or what I exemplify in the classroom is not an epitome of good teaching? It was really, really touching to me, and I was taken aback, and that is when I decided that I had to do something. I had to actually identify why students would give me such low marks in my teaching. So we will say that I looked at the evaluations from students qualitatively, so kind of like survey the data, but at the same time, I can say there was some kind of experimental method used here, because the formal values that students used for rating me, I used that as the control against all the other sources of data that I collected to compare what the students were saying to what I received from the others. So call it again mixed method, which I think is something that is important if anyone is interested in collecting information on students' rating of faculty teaching. It's important that I share with you the context, because when I start sharing with you the quantitative and qualitative results that I got from the students, you will be asking, what kind of school was it? Yes, I am in a small liberal arts college in the northeastern region of the United States. And I actually focus on 3 courses that I teach. Educational measurement, that has on average 9 students a semester. Urban education, that has on average 20 students a semester. And science method, that has on average 3 students per semester. Those numbers are really important because the instrument that is used here at my program actually stipulates that when you have few number of students, then you cannot actually rely on the data that you are receiving from the students' rating of your teaching. Each of these courses has either a practicum associated with it, that is clinical experience, specifically the educational measurement and the science methods class. Students have to spend a minimum of 25 hours in an assigned high school where they engage in observing and practicing teaching under the supervision of their supervisors, some highly esteemed teacher known as their cooperative teacher. The urban education course had a service learning component where students had to go also in an urban school and spend 1 hour a week with a student and help them in their coursework. The educational measurement and science methods, they are required courses that every student in the secondary education program takes. So it is a requirement. You don't have an option. You must take that class. The urban education course on the other side is an elective. However, it has something attached to it called the diversity proficiency. Each student in our institution is supposed to take at least one course that meets the diversity proficiency requirements to graduate. And so in that course, I have students from different schools, from different programs, just because they want to get that proficiency. Also in these classes, we could identify different student identities. For example, in the educational measurement class, the students had different content background. They came from biology, chemistry, physics, history, English language, foreign language. So I'm having a student here who come in with different content background, who are preparing to be teachers in that content. On the other hand, the science method class have just the science students, biology, chemistry, or physics in that given semester. The students were also in different levels of their program. In the educational measurement, they were mostly juniors. At times I had a few sophomores, whereas in the urban education class, you have students from freshman year to senior. Science method, they were mostly senior. So this is just to give you a context of the diversity, which I think also plays an important role when you're trying to evaluate students' rating of their faculty. For this presentation, however, I am going to focus just on the educational measurement course, again, whose average number of students are 9, and where you have students coming with different content background. The tool that my program has adopted for student evaluation or rating of faculty is the IDEA Diagnostic Feedback Instrument. Because I am weary here to take you online to show you what the tool looks like, if you look at the PowerPoint when I post it, you can go in there and see it. I will be sharing with you some of the characteristics of this tool, but I'm sure many of you here, you're probably aware of it. For some reason, I seem to have some respect for IDEA that we have been using. It is a tool that has been in use for a long time. It has a history dating back to 1968, where it originated from Kansas State University. And currently, as far back as November 2019, it was acquired by Campus. Yay, Campus Lab is one of those who are sponsoring this, and so they probably will be excited to know that my school is using IDEA. It has been acquired by Campus, and so unlike in the previous year where students had to use hard copy to rate the faculty, as of last semester, students are able to go online and quickly rate the faculty. And then we are also able to immediately get students' feedback of our evaluation. So IDEA, again, this is the instrument. I have it here. You can go check it out later on. IDEA has so many characteristics on which it allows students to rate the professor, right? So it's a 4-page document, that actually students are given about 43 items on which to grade the faculty based on a Likert scale from 1 to 5. An example of some of the questions that it asks is, the students will have to rate the faculty. Do they display a personal interest in students and their learning? Do they involve students in hands-on projects such as research? Do they give projects and tests and assignments that require originality? Do they ask students to share ideas? So again, an interesting list of questions that students are asked, to which they have to grade the faculty using a Likert scale ranging from 1 to 5. For my presentation, right, so IDEA, or the statisticians, they manipulate, they do their statistics on this different response from the students, and they are able to determine students' rating of faculty. And here I'm going to share with you the part where students are evaluating me based on teaching methods and style, and specifically on the extent to which I'm stimulating students' interest in the course. And under that main theme, there are 4 different aspects that I am rated on. Am I stimulating students to intellectual effort beyond required by most courses? Do I introduce stimulating ideas about the subject? Do I inspire students to set and achieve goals that require them to be challenged? Do I demonstrate the importance and significance of this subject? I found this really important because to me, as you read it and as a faculty, this is something that every faculty should have in their back of their mind as they are creating their syllabus, as they are creating strategies, as they are creating whatever they expect to teach their students. Another section of the form feedback that I want to share with you is the overall evaluation. So the statisticians or the company that gets this all this feedback from the students, this rating. They do their statistics, and they're able to present an overall rating based on a scale of 1 to 5. How does my students see me as an excellent teacher? How does my students see the course as an excellent course? So this is something that as a faculty, we can argue and we can debate all we can. But again, I tell you that students' numbers, what students are reporting, are very important for us to take seriously. I will share with you the feedback that I got from 2010 to 2018. And this is kind of like an overall. I don't expect you to look at this because I have broken it into little chunks. But here you will see again, what I want to share you that the subsequent, the slides that are going to come up, you're going to see students' rating on a scale of 1 to 5. But then I focus only on the percentage of students that rate me at 4 or 5, right? So students have the choice to rate you from 1 to 5. But then in the feedback, IDEA is able to show me the percentage of students that rate me 4 or 5. I think that is kind of fair because every faculty should want to be at least a 4 or 5 when it comes to rating. Once it starts going down to 3, 2, let alone 1, then you have to question what you are doing. And again, note that what I'm going to show you is based on the criteria that I had discussed earlier on. So let's look at this. How the students rate me with respect to stimulating their intellectual beyond that required by most courses. So I want you to look at this graph, right? Again, this is fall of 2010, the very first semester. And in parentheses, these are the number of students in the class that responded to the evaluation. Spring of 29, 9 students, and then fall of 2011, 14 students, and so it goes right up to 2018, right? And you will see that there is a year here, fall of spring of 2016, I was on sabbatical, so that's why you have that data missing. Then look at this. I want you to look at this, based on this. So look at here at the percentages of students that rated me at 4 and 5. And look at this and tell me, do you see any trend? I don't. In each year, I see something different. I see that in spring of 2011, it was terrible with 9 students, right? Just 10% of them rated me on 4 and 5. So that was something of concern. However, 2011, it went higher. And then if you look at it throughout, it hasn't really gone above 60%. And then we're going to talk about this later on. But I want you to just have this picture. Look at this data of what is going on each year on how students are evaluating my teaching. Let's take the second thing. How do students rate me based on the extent to which I am stimulating ideas about the subject? This is really so important because in education, we know that if you do not create an environment where students are being stimulated, they are not going to be engaged. And you can see here again, remember spring was so low, and here again, the students generally did not think that I was stimulating them. In the fall, it was not still that good. But then you see a jump here in the fall of 2011, a fall back in spring, and then 2012, kind of like less. Again, you see that it's all over the place. But you would notice that come 2014 and going, it has kind of like been up at an upper level. It's not 100%, it's not 90%, but again, you kind of see there are some differences there. We don't really see any trend. Again, given that I was intentional in doing something, about my teaching. Yet, I don't see anything here that shows me that this was changing in some kind of like positive way. Although we can say here, if we try to draw like a straight line across, we can say there was generally an increase. And let's look at this. This is also very important. How did students rate me with regards to the extent to which I inspire them to set and achieve, which really something that achieved that really challenge them? How did I set my course to challenge them? Again, you can see here that in some months, and then, now I want you to step back here and think, what are the data? What data are being used to analyze this? Based on those 40 different items that I told you before, and you can kind of see that there's some kind of relationship when it comes to these different criteria. And in spring of 2011, it has been consistently low, right? Something happened there. But going up here, things have kind of like looked the same. If I had a way to superimpose, like the very first slide, you would see that there's really no difference when it comes to these different things on how students are rating me. Let's look at this one. Demonstrated the importance and significance of the subject matter. I think this is really important because every faculty, you should be able to enable your students to know how important that course is. Why is it important that you're teaching them? And here, you can actually see that there was really a significant number of students every year rating that I was doing that. But in the spring of 2011, there was an issue going on with that cohort of students that I have, who rated me the way they did. But significantly, you can see that overall, things have been going on well. And then the next thing on teacher quality, how did they rate me overall on being an excellent teacher and being an excellent course? Again, this was on the scale of 1 to 5. And you see here that generally it's kind of like above 3, that they are rating that the course is excellent, that teacher is excellent. But again, in the spring of 2011, not very good. Again, remember again that we are talking here only about those that rated me higher, but in this case of teacher quality, it is actually looking at those that rated me at the different scales from 1 to 5. Now, let us say something about this qualitative measure. I've shown you different pictures, different graphs, and I have told you that in my eyes, I don't really see a trend that I can say, despite something that I am doing, it is improving my scores. They were all over the place. I have different content. Students are different. Identity are different. I thought it was really important for me to look at the qualitative because one good thing with IDEA is that it gives students the opportunity to make comments because those numbers that they give did not actually tell me where the issue was. It just said overall, you are low on this, that, and that. But as a teacher, I want to be able to know specifically what is it that I need to improve in my teaching? What is that specific thing that students have issue on? Otherwise, I can't just go and overturn the whole course. We need to know exactly what the reason is. So when I look at the comments that students made, in 2010, out of the 14 students, only 2 students made a comment, and overall, this is what they said. Specifically, quoting from the students, I really enjoyed this class and Dr. Ati. However, the work outside the class was too much. So I had to be very attentive in that the work, I was giving too much work. And then the following semester spring, there were 3 comments. And remember, again, this is a class where the scores, the rating was significantly low compared to the other years. The students said, again, still indicating that there was too much work. And one of the students even said the class was so disorganized and assignments were not very clear. And then let me go to the fall of 2012. So this is the 3rd semester of me teaching. And this was around the time when I got the feedback about my teaching. So in the fall, I did not in the spring. I did not get it immediately. So it was when in the fall that I got the feedback, and the fall of 2012, it really hit me as I was looking at the comments that students had made about my teaching. And overall, if you look at these comments, you would feel how angry the students were about the course, about the teaching, about the content. Look at this, for example, a student saying that I don't think the instructor realized the amount of work assigned for this course, or just how taxing the workload is. So reading all these comments really made me to think and said I had to find out exactly what was wrong with my teaching. So I got all this information, the feedback, and I shared it with my peers, my members of my program, because to tell you the truth, I cried because as a teacher educator, I did not expect that I was not teaching up to expectations, because students were doing all the work I gave them. And every time I would ask them if they had any question, if there was anything wrong, and they would tell me everything was okay. And here I get all this feedback telling me that there was too much work, assignments were not clear, just different from what I had observed. So I went ahead and I looked at all the comments, and I realized that even when there were not many comments, the few that were made were kind of like telling me something about my course. And even when I had only one comment, I knew I had to be attentive about that. And what I did was I went on to take my own informal way of getting information from the students that I'm going to share with you. But before I share that, I want you to look at the difference between the rating of students of my teaching in the fall of 2012 and the spring of 2013. In the fall of 2012, that is when I started being intentional in collecting information on what students' perspectives were about the course and making some modifications. And you would see that in the spring of 2013, there was a significant difference, but for this one, that doesn't really say anything, in the students' rating of my course. I'm going to share again with you what I did that I think contributed to this shift in students' rating of my course. Again, this is about the quality, teacher, and the course, significant increase. How did I improve, or how did I change this? As I said, I conferred with the head of my program and with my peers. I shared with them my ratings, and because to me it was kind of like surprising. And I'm just fortunate that I have a wonderful program where my colleagues are very supporting and they encourage me. I was the youngest faculty. I just came in. They told me, "Comfort, don't worry, it's okay." And the head of the program kind of gave me some ideas. I told him what I was doing. I shared with them everything that I was doing with the students. And he kind of told me, "Oh, you don't need to give them these readings all the time. Might be you have to incorporate these." But again, the students were consistent about me giving a lot of readings and a lot of projects, and which I did. Probably I did not foresee, I could not tell that I was dealing here with undergrads just coming from my PhD program. And so I was kind of like overriding them. And the fact that each time they were doing all the work and showing me that they were okay, it just made me again to feel like, okay, it looks like I'm not giving them enough. Also, rather than just staying where I was, I continued to increase the workload because they were giving it to me. And we are just fortunate in my institution that we have students. These are high-achieving students, and they are so studious, and they will do everything, right? I learned that later. And so even though they were doing everything, there was a lot of anger in them. And they could not come out openly to tell me that something was wrong, because as I learned, they were kind of like, well, if I go tell her this is wrong, she might perceive me as weak student, so they were doing all they could to do the work, but I can assure you, and I agree with them, that it was too much work. Another thing that I did was videotaping my teaching. So in the fall of 2012, my educational measurement class, I videotaped every single class that I taught, and I watched it, and I kind of identified some of the things that were going on to try to see where I can fix or make change. I also instituted what is called an exit slip or minute note, where students are supposed to say what was something that they liked about the course, did not like about the course, or would have wanted to see in the course. And I will read that immediately after I teach and take notes. And if there was something that they said that I did not agree, I would immediately send an email to them telling them why I did what I did and why it was important. So I was giving them automatic feedback to help them know why I was doing some of the things. There was another thing that I got myself engaged in. It's called the mid-semester assessment project. We have that in my institution. It's voluntary, and faculty who is interested in enhancing their teaching or who wants to get feedback in the middle of the semester about their teaching from students, they would be Center for Teaching Excellence, get another faculty who is interested in helping, will come into your class in your absence and ask the students some specific questions. What is it that you like best about your faculty, about your teaching? What is it that you would like him to change? What is it that he does that you don't think is good? And so students will give all that information to that faculty who is collecting it. You do a summary, and then you meet with the faculty whose class you are exploring, or you are taking that document and you share it. This document does not go to anyone else. It is between you assessing the fact, collecting that information, and the faculty who is interested in getting that feedback. And after so many years, I have become one of the MAPs. So every semester, I try to go to other faculty's class, observe their students, and also give them feedback. I found that very, very helpful, because during the time, the students are anonymous in giving their responses. And from it, I also learned some of the things that the students thought were not good about my teaching. One of the things they indicated was that I had a lot of projects that did not give them a lot of time to do before the next. So the projects were just like one after the other. So that I also took into consideration, and I made sure that I changed. Peer evaluation, I invited my peers to come in and observe me and give me feedback. And then I also made friends with individual students in the class, and I would ask them by ear after class every now and then, was there something about this class? Was there something? Is there something that I need to do? And all that information I got together to be able to help me to change some of the things in my classes. How did I confirm my growth in my teaching? So looking at all the additional things that I had to do to change the things that the students were complaining on, I noticed a change in my teaching, in the students' evaluation of my teaching. So whether we can say the instruments like IDEA, they don't work or not, I strongly believe that they tell you something, they give you some information on how effective you are. Students' reflection at the end of their students, of their education program, at the end of their program, they are required to write a reflection on their experience in their program. And when I read their reflection in their senior year, they consistently indicate the amount of learning they have got from my course that they took, how they have implemented it in their classroom as student teachers. That tells me that they are learning something. I've also been hearing from adults, ex-students, students who have graduated, who call me and ask me, they request me to send some of the documents that we have used in class because they think it's going to be useful in what they are doing in their various schools. That tells me also that I am doing something. And also the general demeanor of the classroom. I'm able to kind of like feel free and go around and actually see. And unlike where I was just assuming, there was a lot of assumptions about students doing work and doing it well. Now I have been intentional, kind of like right there and then ask students and rarely get a feel of what is going on. So after all this, what is my conclusion about my self-assessment or students' evaluation of me? I see that there is a bad and the ugly when student evaluation, when it is used as a decision tool. And in some of the presentations today, the presenters indicated that faculty do not like when these evaluations are used to make career decisions, tenure, promotion, or even in some places payment. And if it is used as a threat to faculty, faculty is going to behave differently. They are going to find different ways to enhance their rating, which does not align with teaching excellence. A little experiment, a little story I want to tell you. I read in the literature and also heard from some of my peers that the time at which you require students to evaluate you rarely matters. And if you look at the data that I showed you in 2015, I tried to do that because there is this thing of once students are evaluating you close to exam, students have a lot of pressure, they are tense, and they have the tendency to be thinking about their tense and everything and rate you low. So try to evaluate them as far away from the exam period as possible. And I'm very sure that in 2015, where I had high grades, I kind of like intentionally allowed my students to rate me very early, as soon as I had the instrument, before Thanksgiving. They were thinking about Thanksgiving, they were excited, they didn't have any pressure, and so I saw kind of like my scores really flagged up. And so I did something, but I could also, and I should think that when students, the time students are evaluating faculty can also give false information about the rating. The good of student-faculty evaluation, there is so much good in it. If the procedures are directed towards self-evaluation, and again, self-evaluation takes a lot of time. It took me a lot of time to be really intentional because assessment is something that I do, is something that I teach, and so probably that motivated me to actually think about that and make it something that is intentional. For my other faculty peers to whom assessment is not part of the things that they do, it can be challenging for them to do these things that I was doing to be able to see the effect on students' evaluation of my score. Faculty who perceive the benefit of this are likely to initiate their own process and do some self-evaluation. So that is for the administration to find a way to get faculty to be engaged in self-evaluation, because we can get all this feedback, we can get all the data, but if we do not do a self-evaluation, if we do not analyze it and make sense of it, then it will just be waste of time. What is the implication so far? Based on what I have seen, I'm still kind of like looking at everything, and if there's anyone here who's a statistician or everything, I really want to know a lot about the meaning of the idea statistics. I know a lot about the qualitative and about what I've done, but I think I need to bring everything together to make sense of it. For the faculty, what is the implication? If any faculty is here, my recommendation would be that we look at student evaluation as a source of information to reflect on our teaching. And hopefully your institution is not using it as a career tool, as a tool to make decisions on you. Take it wholeheartedly and look at it as something, some way that students are talking to you, that you should look at your instruction, you should look at your curriculum and find a way to enhance it. Because teaching, like any other thing, is something that we grow in. There's no finite, there's no finish point with teaching. So you're supposed to have some kind of growth mindset. Know that if you develop, if you learn, you are going to even get better. And be careful in identifying students' issue. It's really so important because as I showed you, I had students from different content areas. So when the students are coming in, it's important for me to know how many English language students do I have, how many science students do I have, how many history. So that way, when I'm talking about the importance of the course, I have to make sure that it aligns to their different contents. If I just come and talk about science and leave those students away, they won't be able to make sense and they will not see the extent to which I am making them to think cognitively about my course. Be able to discern faculty information from teaching. Some students are not motivated. The fact that students are doing all the work does not mean that they are motivated, does not mean that they are happy. There is something about motivation and learning for mastery goal. That is what we are all about in institution of higher learning. And I pray that all my peers, faculty members are engaged in that. And to be engaged in that, you have to take serious, even if it's only one student making a comment about your course, right? We just had a keynote speaker. It was all about equity, inclusion. Every student is about every student. It's not about the majority. So if only one student is not happy with your course, then there is something that you need to do to be able to make sure that the student is part of that course. What are the implications for administrators? I pray that administrators will continue to use it for formative purposes rather than summative, rather than making decisions, because as I showed you, the data that did not even make sense to me, I had to collect all these other things to be able to make sense of what was going on. Administration should support faculty to engage in self-assessment. How? I personally don't know. And probably I'm a little bit biased here because I come with a background in assessment. My dissertation was on assessment of high school teachers in their teaching. And so I come with that little thing back in my mind where it really motivates me to look at assessment, because I believe that teaching cannot be effective without assessment. Assessment is so integral in teaching. And if you have a way to collect any feedback that tells you on how to enhance your teaching, you should go with it. Using formal evaluation for formative role will continue to enhance the ugliness of these ways of evaluating teaching. And I don't know how many minutes we have there. That's all I have to share with you. So much more to share. But Jen, do we have time for comments on anything else?
We are running about 15 minutes over, but we did start a little late. I did post in that if anyone needed to leave, they could. But there was one question, and it was, how do you or your school encourage all students to fill out evaluation survey? Is it on a voluntary basis or not?
The faculty plays an important role in that. So they always give a time, kind of like 2 weeks period for faculty to get the students to fill that. So the faculty will also indicate what time they would want someone to come in and engage the students in filling that. And once they come in there, it depends then if all the students are there, they are going to fill it. But if all the students are not there, those who are absent, they are not. So again, it depends on students' attendance on the day that it is filled. And with the online system that has been adopted, where I have read again in the literature that online would enhance the number of students who complete it, I have instead seen a decrease in the number. Because with the online now, if students are not, even when students are engaged in the class and they are just allowed to go online and do it, in one of the classes that I taught, co-taught with a faculty, there were 20 students and we had just 50% return rate of the form for those who filled it. So I'm not sure that the online even enhanced the number of students who completed it. And based again on my findings and what I am saying for these 8 years, when students do not have any problem with a course, they are really reluctant, they don't even find any need. And if there is a week where students are consistently, students usually take 4 courses, they've already done 2, right? They become kind of like there's some fatigue in filling those forms. And I would say, I don't know whether the study has been done of that, but a student who, if say student A had to do this 4 times in the same day, you would agree with me that the last one, it would just be kind of just bubbling anything without really thinking intuitively or intentionally about what they are completing.
I think that makes sense. It always goes along with the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Comfort. This was great. Especially the fact about doing midterm student surveys. We do that at NEC as well, and it's perfect for just-in-time modifications to a course to meet that cohort.
Mhm.
Well, thank you, everyone. If there are no further questions, I'm going to end the session in a moment. I posted where the slides and links to recordings will be posted later this week. I'm posting that again in the chat, so keep an eye out for that. And thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. You have my address. I'm going to be sending this to Jen. Oh, there is already a link that I'm going to upload this. And if anyone has any question or want to share the evaluation with me, come on, send me your contact and let's talk more about it. I am very interested, especially on someone who understands idea and all the ratings and what they mean. I really want to be able to talk to someone to understand my ratings better.
Sounds great. I may have to get in touch with you, Comfort. I'm all about these faculty evaluations.
Thank you. So
Thank you, everyone. Yep. Oh, I'm going to end the meeting now. Yep. Thank you so much.